Put the day down for a moment. Not some of it. All of it. The conversation that went sideways. The decision that is out of your hands. The version of tomorrow you have been constructing and deconstructing since this afternoon. Set it down. You have been holding something very tightly today. You can feel it in the way your chest is not fully opened, in the way your mind keeps returning to the same few thoughts, turning them over, as though more turning will finally produce the answer that 2 hours of turning did not. It has not, and it will not. Not tonight. Not in this dark. Not with this mind. This tired. This late. That is where we begin, not with instructions, not with a framework you are meant to implement, with something quieter and more honest. Tonight we are going to talk about what it actually means to release what you cannot control. Not the version where you simply stop caring, the real version. The one that asks something more honest of you, and gives back something more lasting than exhausted relief. You are allowed to be here. You are allowed to stop solving for one night. Let the breath slow. Let the room hold you. We are going to begin. Most people who struggle with letting go are not weak. They are not anxious by nature. They are not broken in some way that needs diagnosing. They are simply operating from a belief so old and so embedded they have never thought to question it. The belief is this: if I keep thinking about it, I am still doing something about it. It feels responsible. It feels like care. To lie awake turning a situation over is to feel like you have not abandoned it, like you are still there, still present, still in the room with the problem, even after the room has emptied and the people in it have gone home to their own evenings. And so the mind keeps going, not because it believes it will find the answer, but because stopping feels like giving up. This is the misunderstanding at the center of most sleepless nights, the confusion between thinking and influence, the belief that mental presence equals actual impact. It does not. Consider what control actually is, not the idea of it, not the feeling of it, the real thing. Control is the ability to produce a specific outcome, to take action and observe a direct result, to apply effort at a moment when effort can change something. That is control. And it exists only in a very specific set of circumstances, when you are present, when the window for action is open, when the lever you are pulling is connected to something that can move. Most of what keeps people awake at night does not meet any of those conditions. The email has been sent. The conversation has already happened and been heard and been felt by the person who heard it. The decision belongs entirely to someone who is not in this room. The outcome depends on factors no single mind could redirect from a bed in the dark. The window closed hours ago or days ago, and the lever is no longer attached to anything that moves, and yet the mind keeps pulling it. Not because pulling changes anything, but because the mind has not yet been told it can stop. This matters more than most people realize, because a mind that does not know it can stop does not stop. It keeps generating. It keeps reaching. It produces scenarios, rehearses conversations, simulates outcomes, maps contingencies. It does all of this with absolute sincerity, because it genuinely believes this work is useful, that somewhere in the next revision of the same scenario, the answer will appear that has not appeared in the previous 40. It does not appear, not because the mind is not capable, but because the answer is not in the scenario. The answer, if it exists, is in the morning, in a rested mind approaching the situation with fresh information and genuine perspective, not in the dark, in a depleted state, running the same loop at reduced capacity. This is the hidden cost of false control, not just the sleeplessness, not just the exhaustion, but the quality of the thinking itself. The person who forces a problem into the night and works it while depleted produces worse thinking than the person who sleeps and returns to it in the morning. They spend more energy on a worse process and produce a worse result. They lose twice, the rest and the clarity. There is a woman who spent 17 years managing a team, competent, respected, someone her colleagues trusted with hard problems. She was also someone who, by her own account, had not slept fully in years, not because the work was too much, because the work followed her home, into the evenings, into the quiet after dinner, into the dark before sleep. She was there for every decision, mentally present for every outcome, even the ones that happened while she was lying in her own bed with her eyes closed. She did not call it anxiety. She called it thoroughness. She called it caring about the outcome. And she believed with complete conviction that her thinking was doing something. That somewhere in the city, the situations she was mentally reviewing were being held more carefully because she had not put them down. They were not. Nothing she turned over in the dark changed what happened in the morning. What changed was her. The thinking that felt like control was costing her the only thing that cannot be rebuilt: the quiet hours, the body's repair, the mind's genuine recovery. She was paying for the illusion of influence with her actual health and her actual intelligence. Her team noticed, before she did, that she was slower in meetings, that ideas that used to come quickly were arriving late or not arriving at all. She attributed this to stress. It was not stress. It was compound interest on 17 years of nights paid to the wrong account. This is the hidden tax of false control. You do not get back what you spend. The energy given to outcomes you cannot change tonight is not stored somewhere to be retrieved in the morning. It is simply gone, burned in the dark with nothing to show for it, except the same anxiety, slightly worse, and a body one night further from the rest it has been asking for. And the difficult truth, the one most of us avoid because it sits at the edge of something uncomfortable, is that the thinking was never entirely about the problem. It was about the feeling of the problem, the feeling that something terrible will happen if you stop paying attention, that the world is a fragile structure held together in part by the vigilance of your mind, and that the moment you release your grip, something you were holding will fall. Nothing will fall. It was never in your hands the way you believed. There is a distinction that changes everything once it becomes clear. It is the distinction between influence and control. These words are often used as synonyms. They are not. Influence is real, concrete, valuable. Influence is what happens when you act, when you speak clearly, when you prepare with care, when you show up to a moment and apply yourself to it with everything you have. Influence changes things. Your choices matter. Your effort has consequence. You are not powerless, and nothing in this room is asking you to pretend otherwise. But influence exists only while the window is open. Once you have acted, once the moment has passed, once the conversation is over and the door has closed and the decision has been made, influence becomes memory. What happened is done. Whatever follows belongs to the outcome now, not to you. It will unfold as it unfolds, shaped by forces and people and circumstances that are moving forward in their own way, regardless of whether you are mentally present or not. Control is the belief that you can keep influencing after the window has closed, that sustained attention equals sustained impact, that if you review the situation carefully enough, something in it will shift to accommodate your preference. It is the conviction that the loop, run one more time, will finally produce the exit. It is a convincing belief. It is also a very expensive fiction. Think of a man who has just had a difficult conversation with someone he loves. The conversation ended an hour ago. He is home now, in the kitchen, replaying it, choosing different words, better words, constructing the version where it went well, where he said the right thing at the right moment, where the other person understood exactly what he meant. He can feel the tightness in his chest that was not there this morning. The conversation is over. The words that were said are the words that were heard. The other person is not in the kitchen. They're somewhere else entirely, living their own version of the evening, and no amount of internal revision reaches them. There is no connection between what he revises in his mind and what they experience in their home. The replay is private. It changes nothing in the world. It only prolongs the pain. What it will do is keep him from sleeping, keep him from recovering, keep him from waking tomorrow with the clarity and the relative calm that would give him the best possible chance of actually addressing the rift. He is using the resource that could repair the relationship to rehearse the way the relationship broke. He is spending tomorrow's repair money on tonight's grief. This is the cost that is never fully accounted for when people talk about worrying as though it were a form of responsibility. They frame it as dedication, as caring too much to let go. They do not frame it as a transaction, but it is one. You are exchanging something real, your rest and your capacity, for something imaginary, the feeling of continued influence over something that has already happened. Here is something harder to sit with. The thoughts being rehearsed at 2 in the morning are almost never the thoughts that lead anywhere useful. They are the same thoughts. They have been thought before, often many times. They do not arrive at new conclusions. They do not surface information that was unavailable at 10 o'clock. They do not produce a perspective that was not accessible while still awake and relatively clear. They circle. The reason they circle is not that the problem is unsolvable. It is that the mind, under pressure and in a state of fatigue, does not have what it needs to move forward. It does not have the distance that only time provides. It cannot access the perspective that arrives after genuine rest. It is trying to produce, at its lowest point, what can only be produced at its best. And the trying is what prevents the recovery. There is a reason certain questions resolve overnight, not because anything happened in the world, but because something happened in the mind. Some knot, held too tightly across the whole of a day, loosened while you were not watching it, and you wake and the answer is there, or the path is there, or simply the feeling is different in a way that makes the situation navigable when it was not the night before. Not because you figured it out, because you stopped trying to. This is not mystical. This is how the brain actually processes difficulty. The regions responsible for perspective and judgment cannot function well under sustained stress and fatigue. They need quiet and rest to integrate what they received during the day. A person who lies awake forcing a problem through a depleted mind is using a diminished instrument on a task that requires a sharp one. They are producing more noise and calling it progress. The intelligent thing, the thing that genuinely serves the problem, is to stop, to trust the morning with it, to hand the situation forward to the version of yourself that will have rested and will have perspective and will be able to actually think. This is not giving up. This is understanding how the instrument you are working with actually functions. There is another layer beneath all of this, because even after you understand that the thinking is not helping, even after you accept on some level that rest would serve you better than wakefulness, there is still something that keeps the grip in place, something that makes releasing feel genuinely dangerous rather than genuinely wise. It is the fear that your attention is a kind of protection, that the situation is safer somehow because your mind is on it, that something fundamental would shift in the arrangement of the world if you closed your eyes and stopped watching. This fear is old. It goes back further than the current situation, further than this year, or this relationship, or this worry. It goes back to a time when vigilance was not a habit, but necessity, when staying alert to what was happening around you mattered in a way it no longer does. The instinct was built for conditions that no longer apply. But instincts do not know that. They only know the signal. But you are not in that situation anymore. The threats you are rehearsing tonight are not standing outside the door. They are inside your own head, made of memory and projection and the particular chemistry of exhaustion. And a mind that stays awake guarding against threats that exist only in its own imagination is not protecting you. It is depleting itself against a wall it built itself. The body knows this on some level. That is why sleep pulls at you, even as the mind keeps reaching. The body is trying to tell you what the mind has not yet accepted, that you are safe, that the night does not require your supervision, that every situation you are holding will survive the hours between now and morning without your mental presence at its side. There is a physician who specializes in the kind of exhaustion that does not respond to sleep. She sees people who rest through the weekend and wake on Monday still depleted. People who take holidays and come home carrying the same weight they left with. She says the same thing to almost all of them, with small variations for their particular circumstances. You are not just tired. You are tired from the effort of holding things. Not physical holding, mental holding. The sustained effort of non-acceptance, the energy it costs to remain in continuous low-level resistance to the shape of what is actually happening, to keep mentally pushing against reality, trying to make something different from what it is, trying to hold an outcome open that has already closed. That effort does not clock out. It does not take a lunch break. It runs quietly in the background of every hour, including the sleep hours. The thing that actually recovers a person, she says, is not more sleep. It is releasing the resistance, even briefly, even incompletely, even imperfectly. Allowing the situation to be what it is while you are sleeping, without your supervision, without your grip. And discovering that it survives, that the world does not end when your attention withdraws, that things hold their shape even when you stop squeezing them. This is a discovery that cannot be made in theory. You cannot think your way into trusting release. You have to try it once and find out what happens. And what happens is nothing catastrophic. What happens is that you sleep, and then you wake to find the situation unchanged in the ways that matter, and you yourself changed in a way that matters even more. Clearer, more capable of meeting it, more of the person the situation actually needs. Think of holding water in your hands. When you cup your palms gently, the water rests in them, held, safe, still. But if you grip, if you close your hands against the fear of losing it runs through your fingers in every direction. The grip is what loses it. The thing that holds water is not force, but form. The relaxed, open palm. The willingness to hold without controlling. This is true of most of what we are trying to hold by force. Relationships held with pressure instead of presence grow smaller and more brittle under the grip. Health monitored with anxiety instead of genuine attention produces more anxiety, not better health. Outcomes gripped too tightly are felt more acutely, not because the situation is worse, but because the grip itself is the source of the pain. You are not suffering the thing. You are suffering the refusal to let the thing exist on its own terms. The open palm does not mean you have given up. It means you have enough trust in what you are holding to stop squeezing it. It means you believe the thing can hold itself while you sleep, that the relationship can endure the night without your mental presence at its side, that your body can tend to itself in the dark, that the decision will unfold as it unfolds and meet you in the morning, and be engaged by someone more capable than the person currently lying awake rehearsing it. There is a father of 3 whose youngest was ill for several months, not dangerously, but uncertainly. Tests were run, results took time. Nobody could tell him clearly what was happening or when it would resolve. He sat with that uncertainty every night for 4 months. He did not sleep. Not in any real sense. He would drift and surface repeatedly, pulled back by something internal that kept insisting he was needed at the watch. His wife slept beside him. He resented it quietly early on. It seemed like indifference, like she had found a way to not care that was closed to him. He watched her from across the dark room, unable to understand how she could simply be asleep while their child was sick in the next room. One night he asked her how she did it. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I have done everything I can do for her today. I gave her what she needed. I held her when she needed holding. I spoke to the doctor. I asked the questions. In the night, there is nothing else left to do. And if something happens, I will be there in the morning, rested, more capable of helping than if I had stayed awake worrying all night." Staying awake does not make her better. It only makes me worse, and I need to be well for her tomorrow. So I sleep. He lay still for a long time after she said that. It was not a comfort that arrived all at once. It did not dissolve the fear immediately, but something in it was true in a way he could feel rather than argue with. That the vigil was not for his daughter. She was asleep. She did not know whether he was awake or not. She did not need his wakefulness. She needed him present and capable in the morning. The vigil was for himself. For the feeling that care required suffering. That to sleep while she was sick would be a failure of love. But it would not have been a failure of love. It would have been love expressed differently. Love expressed as preparation rather than punishment. The guilt of letting go is often the last thing to go, even after you understand that the grip is not helping, even after you know, somewhere in yourself, that rest is the intelligent choice. There is still a feeling that you do not deserve it, that something has not yet been suffered enough to earn the rest, that sleep is a kind of abandonment of what you are supposed to be holding. This is worth saying plainly. You are allowed to rest while things are hard. Sleeping is not indifference. It is not surrender. Closing your eyes while something is uncertain does not mean you have stopped caring. It means you understand that care cannot live only in the watching. It lives in showing up, and showing up requires rest. The version of you that is needed tomorrow for the people and situations that actually matter is the rested version. Not the one who stayed awake, running simulations. The one who slept and woke with perspective. The one who can think clearly. Who can feel what needs to be felt without being buried by it. Who can actually be present for the thing, rather than exhausted from the anticipation of it. Consider the image of a satellite in orbit. A satellite does not need to be manually steered through every moment of its path to stay on course. It was launched with sufficient precision that the physics carry it forward. The engineers who built it do not sit awake each night monitoring its position minute by minute. They go home. They sleep. The satellite continues its path without them. Their rest does not affect its trajectory. Their absence from the watch does not make it drift. Most of what you are rehearsing tonight is already in orbit, already set in motion by decisions that have been made, by relationships that have their own momentum, by events that are unfolding in their own time and will continue to do so while you sleep. They do not need your mental presence to keep moving. They only need you to be rested when the moment comes that actually requires you. There is a woman who spent years building a small business, 4 people, then 12, then 22. Each stage more complicated, each year more to carry home. She was the kind of person who believed with genuine sincerity that the business worked because she was always thinking about it, that if she stopped holding it in her mind for a single night, something would slip through the gap. What she discovered over years, and slowly and with considerable resistance, was that the business was more resilient than she had let herself believe. The people she had hired were more capable than she had allowed them space to be. Problems she had not anticipated were being solved by people she had been too afraid to fully trust. The structure she had built was holding without her constant mental supervision. It had been holding for a long time. She had just never stopped watching long enough to notice. What was holding not was her. She was the fragile part of the system she had built, not because she was weak, because she had refused to believe the system was strong enough to exist without her worry. The worry was not the fuel that kept the business running. It was the exhaust of a person who had never fully trusted what they had made. The moment she began to sleep differently, something changed, not in the business, in her. She arrived to the day clearer. She saw further ahead. Problems she had been circling for months resolved in morning conversations she finally had the energy to hold. Ideas came back that had been absent for years. The intelligence she had been burning in the dark, on a problem she could not move in the dark, was available in the morning, where it could actually accomplish something. And it was sharper there, because it had been rested. This is the trade that goes unnamed in most conversations about ambition and care. You can spend your intelligence in the night, grinding against things that will not move until morning, or you can bring it whole and fresh to the daylight, where it can actually do something. You cannot do both. You have one supply of it, and where you spend it is a choice, made quietly every night, in these last waking minutes. There is a way to hold difficult things that is neither denial nor despair. It requires finding a third place, one that is harder to locate than either of the familiar positions, but more durable once found. It is acknowledgement, the act of saying clearly to yourself in the quiet, "This thing is real. What I am feeling about it is real. The uncertainty is real. The weight is real. I am not dismissing any of it, and it is not in my hands tonight." Not fighting the truth is very different from not caring about the truth. People confuse these constantly. They believe that acceptance means resignation, that releasing the grip is the same as releasing the cause. It is not. You can care profoundly about something and still close your eyes. You can love someone completely and still allow the night to pass without monitoring. You can want a good outcome with everything in you and still understand that wanting it awake, in the dark, at this hour, serves no one. The energy spent fighting the shape of a situation is energy that does not go toward the situation. It goes into the fight, and the fight is always with something that does not move. You cannot argue reality into a different form. You can only exhaust yourself against it, or you can accept it and rest, and return to it in the morning with something left. Acceptance does not ask you to approve. It only asks you to stop paying attention a situation does not require. You can hold the truth of a hard thing lightly, the way you would hold something fragile, not gripped, not abandoned, just held, carefully, with as little force as possible, set on the floor beside the bed, within reach if needed, but no longer carried through the night. There is a doctor who trained in palliative care and spent many years sitting with people at the end of their lives. She said that the ones who died most peacefully were not always the ones with the fewest regrets. Sometimes they had many. What they had was something she struggled to name for a long time before she finally found the word. They had release. Not because they stopped caring about what they were leaving behind, but because they had understood, at some point, that the grip was not the same as the love. That you could love something completely, love it to the very end, and still open your hands. She thought about this often in her own life. The late nights with her children's illnesses and difficulties, the phone kept close on the nightstand, in case. The sleep that was always provisional, always slightly on guard. She began asking herself whether the guard was for them or for herself, whether the vigil was love, or whether it was the feeling of love, whether keeping watch made her more capable of helping them, or whether it simply made her feel less guilty while making her less capable. Slowly, she came to understand that the most loving thing was often the one that looked least like love from the outside. To go to sleep, to rest completely, to show up the next day with everything she had, instead of the depleted fraction that survived a night of watching, to open the hands. There are things we hold because we were taught that holding is love, that presence means never fully leaving, that care means constant attention. These lessons, absorbed young and confirmed by experience, become the architecture of our sleepless nights. We do not question them because they feel like virtue. They feel like what a good parent would do, what a good partner would do, what a serious, responsible, caring person would do. But virtue does not require depletion. Love does not require exhaustion. Care does not require the sacrifice of the very resource that makes care possible. A rested person loves better, shows up more fully, has more to give when giving is genuinely needed. The sleepless vigil is not a gift to the people you are trying to tend. It is a debt building quietly that they will eventually, in some form, help you carry. You serve the things you love better by sleeping than by suffering in the dark on their behalf. This is not selfishness. This is the only version of care that lasts. There is something that happens in the body when you genuinely let go. Not just decide to let go, not just tell yourself to relax, but actually release the grip at a level the body can feel. The shoulders lower without being told to. The jaw unclenches from a position it has been holding for hours. The chest expands in a way it could not before. The breath goes deeper than the shallow pace it has been keeping all evening. These are not And the letting go is not an absence of something. It is a presence. The presence of trust. Trust that the situation will hold its shape overnight without your grip on it. Trust that the people involved can navigate the night without your mental supervision. Trust that whatever comes next will be met by a version of you that is better prepared than the one currently lying awake. This trust is not naive. It is not the trust of someone who does not understand the stakes. It is the trust of someone who understands them clearly, who has been present for them all day, and who has come to see that holding on after the window closes is not intelligence. It is the last reflex of a mind that has not yet been told it has done its part. You have done your part today. Whatever today asked of you, you were there for it. You thought, you cared, you tried. You moved through it with whatever you had. That is done. The part that remains belongs to tomorrow. Not to this room, not to this dark, not to a mind that is tired and past the hour when thinking serves anything. You can set it down. Consider a tree in a storm. It does not become rigid when the wind comes. A rigid tree breaks. What keeps it standing is the opposite of resistance. The roots go deep, but the branches yield. They move with the wind rather than against it. They release in the direction of the pressure rather than fighting it. And when the storm passes, the tree is still there, still rooted, not because it held fast against the wind, but because it moved with it, without being uprooted by it. This is not weakness in the tree. It is the intelligence accumulated over a long time of surviving storms. You bend and you yield, and you trust the root, and the root holds you, and when the storm passes, you are still standing. You have roots, too. Everything you have built and cared for and invested yourself in, that is the root. The relationships, the work, the slow accumulation of who you have become. The root is deep. It does not require your constant attention to hold. It holds because of everything that came before this night. And the storm, whatever form it is taking right now, is pressing against the branches, against the things that can move without the root being threatened. Let the branches move. Bend with the wind tonight. Release the grip on what wants to move, on what is going to move regardless, and trust that in the morning you will still be there, rooted, capable of bending again if needed, and of standing again when the wind drops. There is a version of control that most people never question because it is wrapped in something that looks like responsibility. It is the belief that the right amount of attention, sustained long enough, can hold an uncertain outcome in place until it resolves favorably. That if you just keep thinking about it, you are doing something. That the thinking is the container that keeps the situation from falling. But attention is not a container. It is a resource. And like every resource, it runs out. A person who spends their nights giving attention to outcomes they cannot change wakes up with less of it, less to give to the people who need it, less to bring to the work that could actually be influenced, less to offer the next moment when the next moment arrives and genuinely needs them. The arithmetic of this is simple and rarely examined. Every hour of sleep given to anxious review is an hour of clarity not available tomorrow. Every night of partial rest translates over weeks and months into a diminished version of the person you are trying to be. The depletion is cumulative, and because it is gradual, it is easy to mistake it for simply being who you are, for your natural ceiling. It is not your ceiling. It is the floor of what a rested version of you would consider a poor day. The ceiling is higher than you have been allowed to reach because the nights have been given to the wrong work. Tonight, the night belongs to rest. The problems can have every other hour. They can have tomorrow. They can have all the clear and capable thinking a rested mind will bring to them when the morning comes. But this hour, this quiet, this particular darkness belongs to you, to the body that has been waiting for permission to fully stop, to the mind that has been working since before the alarm went off this morning, and has not once been given genuine leave. You are giving it leave now. Think about what it actually feels like when you release something you have been holding, not forcing yourself to release it, not deciding intellectually that you should, but the actual experience of genuinely letting go. There is a moment, and if you have felt it, you know exactly what is being described, where the resistance simply stops, where you stop fighting the shape of something and allow it to be what it is. The physical sensation of that moment is unmistakable. Something in the chest opens. The breath goes deeper. There is a quality of quiet that was not there a moment before. That moment is available tonight. It is not something you have to manufacture. It is something you have to stop preventing. The grip is the obstacle. The release is the natural state the body is trying to return to. When you stop applying force, the release arrives on its own. Stop preventing it tonight. There is a teacher who worked with children in a school in a difficult part of a city. The work was hard in ways that do not fully translate to those who have not done it. The hours were long, the needs were significant, the resources were never quite enough. She cared about her students in the way that only people who do this work fully understand. She carried them home with her, the ones who were struggling, the ones whose home situation she could not change. For years, she did not sleep well. She would lie awake running through the students she was most concerned about, planning, problem-solving, constructing interventions she might try tomorrow. She believed she was being a good teacher by doing this. She believed the thinking was serving them. One evening, sitting with a colleague who had been teaching for 30 years, she described this habit. The colleague listened carefully. Then she said something the younger teacher had not expected. She said, "The children in your class do not need you to lie awake worrying about them. They need you rested tomorrow. A tired teacher who spent all night worrying gives less than a rested teacher who slept. Which one would you rather be for them in the morning?" She changed slowly and not all at once. She still carried her students home in the sense that mattered. She kept caring, but she stopped keeping the vigil. She slept, and she noticed within weeks that she was better for them, more patient, more creative, more present in the actual moments when they needed her. The worrying had not been care. It had been the feeling of care, purchased at the cost of care itself. There is a question worth sitting with in the quiet before sleep. Not to answer tonight, because tonight is not for answers, but to simply notice. For the thing you are holding most tightly right now, what would actually happen if you set it down for the night? Not forever, just for these hours. Not to abandon it, just to rest beside it rather than gripping it. What would actually change in the world between now and morning? For most people, the honest answer is nothing. The situation would hold its shape. The people involved would sleep or not sleep according to their own needs. The outcome would continue its trajectory toward whatever it is moving toward, without requiring your supervision to do so. And you would wake in the morning to find it exactly as you left it, except that you would be better equipped to meet it. Nothing bad happens in the gap. That is what the body is trying to tell you. That is what the pull towards sleep is insisting, gently, again and again. That you can leave. That you can let the night do its quiet work without you guarding the perimeter. That the world is not held together by your wakefulness. Let that land for a moment. Let it be true. Not just a claim, but an actual permission. You can stop now. Think of the difference between a fire that has been tended and one that has been watched all night in fear of it going out. The tended fire is fed when it needs feeding, and left alone when it does not. The person who tends it rests while it burns, trusting it to do its work without supervision, returning to it when the time is right. The person who watches it all night in fear of it dying adds nothing to the flame. They only exhaust themselves against the dark. You have tended well today. The fire is burning. You do not need to watch it through the night. It has everything it needs. Rest beside it and trust it, and let it do its slow and quiet work while you sleep. There is one more thing, the hardest part, the one that sits quietly underneath everything else and waits to be acknowledged. Some things will not go the way you want them to go. Some of what you are lying awake about tonight will not resolve well. Not most of it, probably not even much of it, but some. That is true of every life, including yours. And the question is not whether you can prevent all unwanted outcomes by watching carefully enough tonight. You cannot. The question is who you want to be when those outcomes arrive. What kind of person you want to walk into them as. And the answer to that is decided by the nights before. A person who slept, who rested, who allowed themselves to release what they could not change, arrives at hard outcomes with something intact. They are not already depleted before the difficulty begins. They have not already rehearsed the fear so many times that the thing itself arrives to an audience already exhausted by the performance. They have resources. They have the capacity to feel what needs to be felt and then move. The person who stayed awake rehearsing the worst outcomes has already paid the price. The energy is spent. The fear has been lived many times. And when the actual thing arrives, if it arrives, they meet it with nothing left. They suffer it twice, once in the anticipation, and once when it comes. Suffering in advance is not preparation. It is suffering with extra steps. It does not reduce the weight of something if it happens. It only adds to the total weight you carry. The bravest choice, the one that actually serves every outcome, whether good or difficult, is to refuse to suffer tonight what may never happen, to trust that you will have what you need when the moment requires it, because you saved it by resting instead of spending it in the dark rehearsing a scene that may not play. You are at the end of a long day. Whatever it asked of you, you were present for it. You thought about the things that needed thinking. You cared about the things that needed caring. You did what you could with what you had. There is nothing more to give the day tonight. The day is not asking anything more of you. The only thing being asked of you in this room, in this quiet, is rest. Breathe slowly. Let the body lead where the mind has been reluctant to follow. You have done enough today. Whatever was left unfinished will still be there in the morning, and you will meet it differently then. You are allowed to release your grip on what you cannot change tonight. The things you cannot control will not be controlled by your watching. And the things that need you tomorrow need you rested. Let the breath become slower. Let the space between one thought and the next grow longer. You do not have to solve anything tonight. You do not have to fix anything tonight. You do not have to hold anything together tonight. The situation will survive the night without you. It has done so before, and you will be there in the morning, more present, more capable, more of yourself, because you rested. Let the shoulders fall. Let the hands open. Let the jaw soften. There is nothing to grip in the dark. Nothing is held together by your tension. Everything that matters can hold itself tonight. You are not responsible for the world while you sleep. You are only responsible for returning to it, rested, in the morning. And you will. Let the mind grow still. Let the darkness be simple. Let the room be just a room. Let the breath be just a breath. The grip is loosening now. You can feel it. Something releasing that has been held a long time. Let it go, all the way. You are safe. Nothing is required of you now. Only this, only the breath, only the quiet, only rest. Sleep is close. Let it come. You have already released the day. You have already done the hard thing. The rest is easy now. Just breathe. Just let go. You are already there. Sleep now.